Hello our dear viewers and welcome to a new edition of the Daily Debate. I'm Rabia. In today's edition we are going to talk about Egypt embracing to enhance the medical supply investment. That would be our topic for the debate today, but we'll start with our top stories where President Sisi held talks with visiting Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia Sudani on Tuesday, during which they reviewed means of boosting the distinguished relations binding the two Arab countries, which are based on mutual respect and brotherhood. President Sisi confirmed Egypt's full support for the unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iraq, as well as its consolidation of ongoing efforts aiming at achieving stability, security and development. The two leaders agreed that the current circumstances require intensifying joint Arab action at the bilateral collective level, noting that this regard of mechanism of tripartite cooperation among Egypt, Iraq and Jordan is essential. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, praised in its report Egypt's efforts in the economic reform, which led to improving the economic indicators, stock markets, foreign currency, and decreasing of inflation rates. The IMF expected improvement of Egyptian economic indicators, which resulted from the economic reform implemented by the government. It is pointed in its report to the controlling of the spending adopted by the government out of the tight of a financial policy in the fiscal year ending in June 2024. The report also highlighting the clear increase in the excess budget in the first 4 years in the fiscal year 23-24. And Egypt has exerted the relentless efforts to enhance the medical supply investments through promoting the domestic industry and expanding the access of exportation. More details in this report.
Has increased the budgetary allocations for the healthcare sector to £495.6 billion in the upcoming fiscal year 2024-25, marking a 24.9% year-on-year hike from the £396.9 billion. Spokesperson for the Cabinet, Hammad announced £7 billion would be provided to quickly address shortage of medicine and medical supplies required by hospitals and pharmacies. He added the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held a meeting to review efforts being exerted to provide the required medical supplies and deal with the problem of shortages in the drug market. The meeting was attended by Ministers of Health and Finance, Head of the Egyptian Authority for Unified Procurement, Medical Supply and Technology Management, and the Head of the Egyptian Drug Authority. Hammad explained the meeting highlighted the package of measures taken to ensure the availability of various types of medicines and pharmaceutical products in the Egyptian market. He noted measures the Finance Ministry had followed during the fiscal year 2024-25 to ensure the availability of financial liquidity for competent authorities to provide the necessary raw materials and medicines, alongside expanding production and pumping of important pharmaceutical products. Premier Madbouli emphasized the state's continued efforts to provide medicine and various supplies to hospitals, noting that Egypt aspires to become a global and regional pharmaceutical hub with a view to attracting investment, boosting exports and supporting the state's economy. The meeting also touched on several files related to the availability of medicine and medical supplies in hospitals through cooperation and coordination amongst the ministries and authorities concerned. As for efforts to localize pharmaceutical industry, which contributes to reducing the import bill, percentage of local manufacturing of Egypt's needs of medicine is more than 75% in financial value and more than 90% of the number of units. Number of pharmaceutical factories nationwide is 170 factories in 2022, in addition to Egypt's possession of 700 production lines. The Export Support Initiative Drug Authority was launched in February 2021 with the aim of supporting and following up Egyptian exports of medical products, working to raise their global competitiveness. Volume of exports of medicine and medical supplies has reached $691 million, and the volume of sales of Egyptian drug market has reached £149 billion. Medical devices market in Egypt is projected to grow by 11.37%, resulting in a market volume of $1,969 million by 2029. Projected revenue in medical devices now is expected to reach over $1.2 million. The medical devices market in Egypt is anticipated to also experience a compound annual growth rate of 11.37%. Egypt is experiencing growing demand for advanced medical devices to address the increasing healthcare needs of its population.
And welcome back, our dear viewers, to shed light on the issue. We are very much delighted to be joined here in the studio by Engineer Nelly Muhammad Abdul Rahman, our board member of the Medical Disposable Factory. Hello, Engineer Nelly, and thank you so much for being our guest for tonight.
Good evening, Nahisti, and thank you very much for hosting today.
Nelly, Egypt has become a destination for the medical supplies investments and the pharmaceutical manufacturing. How actually do you view this as a continuation of the successes of the Egyptian strategy to localize these crucial industries?
Well, okay, let me tell you something about the medical industry and the pharmaceutical in general here in Egypt. Like, we have some major points, or actually some point of strengths that makes Egypt very tempting to the whole market, to the medical market and the pharma market in general. One of the things that we are doing here is like we are opening to OEM and bulk distribution. OEM by means like if we have like companies abroad and they want to manufacture like a certain line here in Egypt, they find it here easy in Egypt to do the whole line because we have like very tempting prices regarding the labor and regarding the electricity cost, and all over like all the manufacturing process, like the overheads compared to Europe and the States are very, very low.
Indeed.
Yes. This is one of the major things that we are like pushing in. And let me just like shed some lights on something else.
Yes,
Egypt exports like medical and pharmaceutical with around $800 to $900 million per year. So this is something that we need to consider.
Indeed. How far the state has the intensification of its efforts to deepen and to localize these industries as part of an ambitious strategic plan in order to become a regional center in these industries in particular?
Okay, let me tell you something when it comes to the manufacturing process. Like, I'm going to give you like an example of my own entirety. We are medical manufacturing and we're seeking expansion. So one of the things that they are pushing and doing for us is they are like facilitating the plots and the lands and the free zones to give mainly to the medical sector and the pharma sector. I'm not saying that the other sectors are not as important as those two, but
these are very important sectors.
Exactly, exactly. Like the food sector and the medical sector is something that you have to consider here, especially also when we had the crisis of the COVID, when COVID was hitting. One of the things that we saw that like all the countries were closing on themselves, and they were using their own medical devices and the pharma products for themselves. So this actually was a big initiative for the country to start manufacturing locally. This is one of the very good things. One of the second things that we need to point out is the UBA, the Unified Procurement. We're being backed up by the UBA fiercely because the options in the UBA is like you have like the products that you get from abroad. But when you compare the prices related to the local manufacturing, this is way too different. Yes, let me just like shed some light more on like the cardiology. It's like the heart and the urology, kidney disease. Like it's known that Egypt is one of the countries that has problems with the kidney disease. We're being supported very much by the UBA in order to sell and access the public and private sector hospitals with the UBA. So this is something that we have really to shed light on.
Could you please shed light, Nelly, on Egypt's success in attracting more investment in the medical supplies and pharmaceutical market during the past few years?
Let me tell you something about the past few years. This is something that rose up exactly like 3 years ago, which is Africa Health Excon. Africa Health Excon, I'll speak more in details about this.
Yes.
This is considered as a medical hub, and it's mainly for Africa, because you know Egypt is it's much more of a hub for Africa. So the Excon has been held like 3 years ago, and it is a success. What's happening in details in the Excon is like we are attracting foreign investment, because what happens is when they see like local manufacturing here in Egypt, they come and investigate. The most important thing is that you have to meet the standard of the manufacturing, which is the CE and the ISO, and also like the manufacturing lines itself. Some of the factories abroad, they like give you like very fierce regulation. They ask you for, we need like full automation. We need lines that to be fully automated. They don't want the labor to be involved in this. Bringing fully automated machines is not that easy nowadays. Because in order to get a machine from abroad, like we get this from China or India, the cost is extremely very expensive. I need to point out something regarding some of the initiatives that the central bank in Egypt did. It was mainly for the factories and mainly for the medical sector. They were offering to get all these supplies, and they give you like long term of installments without any percentages, without any extra percentages. This is something that was very good for our manufacturing lines.
So to what extent you do see actually incentives given to this sector in particular, the manufacturing in the medical supplies, in order to try to facilitate their work and attract more investment in that domain, Ms. Nelly?
Well, one of the things that actually we need to point out when it comes to the facilitation is the free zones. You know, the free zones, we have like lots of collaborations with abroad, tax-free. This is something that actually gives you like the potential to start distributing to Europe with very low cost. This is one of the things. We have also facilitation to bring the raw material from abroad. One of the things also we're having very low margin of how can I say this one? Like we don't pay too much taxes here in Egypt, like the medical sector and the pharma sector, we don't pay taxes.
You are exempted from the tax.
Yes, we're exempted from the taxes, but like with a limit.
Yes.
There are some things that we are exempted from, and some of the other things that we're not exempted from. But I see this as a huge facilitation from the country, like to help you get the raw materials and all the lines that you can start doing all the manufacture with. One of the things that actually the country is like very pushing in is like the OEM and the bulk orders. Like if you have like someone coming from abroad and he wants to manufacture a line over here. I'm not going to mention the name of the company so that we don't like make but these are very well-known companies abroad in the medical sector. What they did nowadays is they started looking for factories here in Egypt, because all the products, like it's pretty much the same like the one they're selling abroad. So why not use the Egyptian hands and the low cost of labor and the low cost of electricity to get those lines and sell them abroad? This is something that's been pushed from the country.
We have to mention here, Ms. Nelly, that the Egyptian healthcare system is undergoing a period of rapid transformation. How has this created major opportunities for investment?
Well, let me tell you something. We have been seeing this like in the last 4 or 5 years. We have seen some foreign investments and some investments from the Gulf area, mainly the Gulf. And it's mainly in the free zones and area of 10th of October, Ashur of Ramadan, where they can come and do the whole factory over here in the free zone, but with the help of the Egyptian doctors and the Egyptian investors, because somehow the whole process looks vague for them. it's good to see a good success story. Like when they see good success stories from Egyptian investors, this is something which is very tempting.
Of course.
Yes. For what we do as investors is like we show them our success stories. We show them what the country does. This is something that has been happening gradually in the last 3 years, and we have been seeing like a huge investment in the medical sector, mainly the medical and the pharma, from the Gulf area.
So many foreign investors are now attracted to invest in that field in particular.
Yes, yes. Not that field in particular. I was just
since we are
like,
talking about this,
yeah.
I mean.
Yes, like I've been seeing this like in the food and beverage and even the textiles, but mainly the medical. The medical is very tempting for the investors because like the revenues, the return of investment of the medical sector is very high. So, and when they start comparing like the manufacturing process in their countries, they always see that Egypt is pretty much cheaper, and they get the same quality of the labor and the product they are having abroad. So why not give it a shot in Egypt?
Indeed. Do you agree, Ms. Nelly, that a key driver behind these changes is the government commitment in implementing the universal health care coverage on behalf of its growing population by the year 2030?
Let me tell you something about the coverage of the public sector. We have been seeing this like in the last couple of years. The public sector has extremely boosted, plus like the spending on the health care in general was like it was the field of the health care in general is very competitive among the other fields. We have felt this. We have felt this from like the support we've been taken from the government. The Egyptian product is being placed as #1, not the foreign products anymore, because it's very much available in the market.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to the fluctuation of the currency and all these things.
We're
being pushed heavily from the UBA to use the Egyptian products. But that's it.
Yes. Actually, Egypt is providing a range of investment prospects since it is interested in growing the healthcare business, particularly in relation to the medical devices. And we want to develop the sector by implementing a new national health insurance program. What's your take on that, Ms. Nelly?
Well, it's not easy. I have to be very honest with you. It's not easy, but some serious steps has been taken regarding this. As I told you, kidney is one of the very dominant diseases here in Egypt. Added to this is the cardiology, the heart problems. We have been seeing this maybe in the last year, especially the last year. We don't know if these are after effects or post effects. So the country has been pushing mainly in those two sectors, like the kidney
and the
dialysis, yes, and the cardiology. We've been supported mainly from the UBA to like actually to go even abroad with like to showcase our products if we need more support regarding like information and all these things. We've been pushed mainly from the UBA to help us in this part.
Yes. What are the horizon of expanding the investment in the medical supply industry through the participation of the private sector and holding the partnership with foreign companies working in that sector?
Let me tell you something. When it comes to the foreign companies, investing in Egypt is not easy. Like investing in the last 10 years was a bit risky. Like the foreign, especially like the foreigners. But stepping a foot when it comes to the free zone, I have to say that the free zone is very tempting for lots of foreigners.
Why, Ms. Nelly?
It's mainly the taxes, because it's a tax-free zone, and there are lots of options that you can have in the free zone. I can mention like some of the. Like,
we want our viewers to understand why it is tempting to invest in the free zones.
It's mainly the trade shows, like the general agreements that we have, the tariffs, the services. We have a huge trade agreements like the common market with COMESA, the Pan-Arab trade BAFTA, and Agadir. This one includes Morocco, Tunisia, Jordan, the GATT, of course. All these are very tempting to a foreign investor to come and start doing a factory from the scratch. Added to this is the labor cost. This is something that you have to point
Very
on.
important element.
Yes, it is. Like the labor cost here in Egypt, when you compare it to Europe and Asia and China and India, it's still very low.
And still they are qualified.
Yes, in addition to this, still the Egyptian labor is very qualified.
Indeed.
Because as I told you, the medical is a very specific, production.
Of course.
You don't allow any labor to go inside and do like any products without decent training.
Yes.
So this is something that they see actually, and they like get somehow astonished. So how come like it's Egypt and you have like those well-trained labor? So they go ahead with this. They go ahead with these investments without hesitation. Yes.
Indeed. How do you see Egypt's current ability to open export markets for its medical products in the international market? And how do you see our product as competitive?
Yes, let me tell you this. Egypt has been becoming a very tempting market in the last few years. And this is one of the major success of the Africa Health Excon. We have been seeing like the Excon the first year. The second year, the foot pass was different. The third year, the foot pass was extremely high. We're seeing lots and lots of foreign companies that wants to come and invest. It's not only investment, it's like it's not taking over also the factories, but like building parallel lines for their main factories here in Egypt. Once they start doing this, this means that they are trusting the whole process. They are trusting the whole manufacturing process in Egypt. The sterilization, like the final product. They know that you are able to provide them with a CE certified product and ISO process. So this is something that they can go with.
Yes.
So we have been seeing this in the last few years, and it is expanding and it is going on a much more higher scale.
Indeed. Although Egypt has taken big steps and strides in the medical supplies industry, it is still facing big challenges. Could you please shed light on these challenges and the efforts by the state to deal with such challenges?
Yes, one of the major challenges that we actually can't squeeze ourselves out of, this is a medical industry. And the medical industry depends mainly on supplies that you have to purchase from abroad. Like the medical sector, most of the medical supplies, we get something called PVC medical grade. This is something that's not done here in Egypt, unfortunately. Like we don't have factories that manufacture the raw material that involves all the manufacturing in Egypt. So this is one of the major things that we are facing. Most probably we might see, like in the couple of years or the couple of coming years, a new era in the manufacturing of the raw material itself. Like if you have the raw material available here in Egypt, you're closing the whole circle of the manufacturing. You don't need to get the raw material from abroad. You already have the raw material here and you start manufacturing and you close the whole circle. But for the time being, what's being done is the country is trying to facilitate the entry of these raw materials through the harbors and all these things with very low taxes, and some of the sectors are also exempted from these taxes.
Yes, indeed. We'll get back to our conversation here and debate, but now we'll take this report where the new law welcoming the private investment for better medical tourism. More details in the following story.
In a landmark move to enhance healthcare in Egypt and boost medical tourism, the government has enacted a new law approved by the House of Representatives in May, allowing private investors to manage and operate public hospitals for a period of 3 to 15 years. The law offers private investors an opportunity to manage public hospitals, contributing to the improvement of healthcare infrastructure and services. All medical facilities and equipment must be maintained in good and functional condition throughout the concession period. Upon the end of the concession, all health facilities, including medical equipment, revert to state ownership at no cost. Private investors must retain at least 25% of the current employees, protecting their financial and employment rights. A portion of the services must be allocated to beneficiaries of state-sponsored treatment services. ensuring that government health schemes and low-income citizens continue to receive affordable health care. The law restricts the employment of foreign medical workers to 15% in existing healthcare facilities and up to 25% in hospitals established by the private sector. Primary healthcare centers, family health units, blood operations and plasma collection are exempt from the law and remain governed by the government. Minister of Health Khaled Abdel Ghaffar highlighted the law aligns with government's efforts to attract private sector investment across various economic sectors, with measures in place to prevent price hikes and ensure service quality. The law includes provisions allowing the government to terminate agreements if hospitals charge excessive fees or provide low-quality services, ensuring the public's interest remains protected. This groundbreaking law is expected to transform Egypt's healthcare landscape, attracting private investment, modernizing public hospitals and positioning Egypt as a prime destination for medical tourism. By balancing investor involvement and robust safeguards, Egypt aims to offer world-class healthcare services whilst maintaining accessibility and affordability for all its citizens. Ministry of Planning and Economy has allocated funds necessary to ensure comprehensive health care for citizens, channeling at least 3% of GDP to improve the health services.
Welcome back, our dear viewers. Continuing our interview here with Miss Nelly Ahmed Mohammed Abdurrahman. Miss Nelly, what is the role played by the unified procurement and free zones in dealing with many challenges facing the medical supplies industry?
Again, let me just point this out. We, as Egyptian manufacturers, we have like the most priority to go into the UBA. Of course, like they support you when they find like your products are eligible enough, because these are not any products. These are medical products.
Very sophisticated, as we were talking while the report was on air. It is a very sophisticated, actually, production. So how do you keep the quality in order to be competitive, of course, because it is a very sensitive domain?
It is. Like, I'll tell you about like some of the cases, like some of the medical sister companies in the market. We invest a lot on the R&D, like the research and development of the product. When we release our products, you definitely have some feedback from the doctors. Of course. And we do not release these products until we're like 100% sure.
Because it is so sensitive, actually.
It is, as I told you, it's not an FB sector, or it's not a textile sector. It's a sector that you are dealing with a patient. A patient is someone who is already having problems, so that your product must not be an extra problem on the patient.
Of course.
So back again to the point, like we invest a lot in the research and development. This is one of the things, and we're being supported also like by the UBA in this part. Like they give you like guidelines, they give you researches in order like to enhance like your technical part in the products. So this is how you can reach a very top level, and you are able to compete with the foreign product.
How far the unified procurement and free zones have actually contributed in decreasing the expenses and improving the competitiveness ability to the world markets?
One of the things I have to point out, it was not the UBA first. It was actually the country itself. It was like a big challenge for the country. If you are still exporting a medical product from abroad, so I'm going to give you a very high tax for this. So because there are some medical factories here in Egypt, and we are already working on a very good pacing. So if someone is bringing a product from outside, he has to think twice. And he keeps saying, okay, why should I not knock the door on the factories that are already here in Egypt? Like, why don't I give them the chance, or why don't I like try these products? So it's one of from the side of the country. And the other side from the UBA, we're being like, if you are putting all your products inside the UBA, the Egyptian products are being like labeled as a green mark. These are the ones that we're going to be using. If the Egyptian products are not enough, okay, I'll start to get like the things that are missing from the products coming from abroad or from the international companies. This is what the UBA does.
Yes. So, do you cover the local market, Ms. Nelly, or do you cover the local market and you export your product? I'm talking now about the industry as in general, and yes. Your factory, for example.
Well, I have to be detailed in this part because also the medical sector is a rising sector in Egypt. Not all the sectors are being covered like with 100%, but like some sectors like the kidney is being covered 100% with the local manufacturers here in Egypt, but not the cardiology and not maybe the urology. Some other sectors are being covered like with 70% and 80%, like as I mentioned, like the dialysis, the kidney is 100%, but like we are in the process of engaging in more opening of more medical factories in order to cover like the needs of Egypt. When it comes to my own company, I'm already covering like the sector of the dialysis, and I am doing something extra, which is the OEM and the bulk orders. I'm having companies from abroad that they manufacture their own lines here as a white label, like they who do the whole process from the scratch. And what I do is I add the label, I add the name of the company, and it gets exported. Yes.
And it is 100% manufactured in Egypt. 100%
manufactured in Egypt. But this is something that you have to do like some kind of confidentiality agreement.
Of course, the know-how.
Yes. When it comes to the Indian market, let me also just point out the Indian market.
Yes,
Indian market is one of the very good markets for consuming as something called bulk orders. Bulk orders, like we don't do the sterilization process, like you pack the whole thing and you just give it to the Indian factories over there. They do the labeling and the packaging and they add their names, and this is something like which is a very good opportunity for us for bringing foreign currency, selling as bulk and OEM.
Of course. To what extent actually the country is boosting its healthcare infrastructure through its plans to invest actually about £6 billion to establish 6 strategic warehouses for medicines and medical supplies across the whole country?
Let me tell you this, we have been seeing this mainly in the free zone areas because when they are actually doing some expansions and putting some plots, one of the things that they are shedding lights on, we need to have the medical supplies as a priority. You need to have, do you need an expansion? This is the first thing they're being asked. Is the plot enough for you? Do you need something extra? Yes, we have seen this. So this is something that has to be considered. When it comes to like central bank, for example, like we have been seeing like options of getting new lines, production lines. Do you need extra production? Because we know that the cardiology is not enough. We know that the urology sector is not enough. Do you consider to manufacture extra? So if you do have the ability to manufacture, why not? Because we have the R&D and you have the know-how of the products. But if the country is giving a push when it comes to the plot and the machines, so why not?
Yes, indeed. How can the new 6 facilities, which will be ready for use by next year, play actually a crucial role in the strengthening of the Egyptian healthcare system and ensuring the availability of the essential medical supplies across the nation?
Let me add something when it comes to the pharma. I know that this is not my sector, but I have friends who are actually, who are actually working in this sector, and they are working fiercely. One of the very good things we've been seeing in the pharmaceutical is we are having factories that they are starting actually doing the vaccination process from the scratch, which is something to be considered here.
Of course.
We know that the vaccination process, and the whole thing is not something easy.
Of course.
And when it comes to the R&D process for the pharma, you need very skilled doctors in order to produce something efficient. It's not only like some chemical reactions you're putting on each other and just producing a medicine. It's something that has to be investigated properly. We have been seeing this the last few years also with the pharma, and we have been seeing lots of French investors, Italian investors in the pharmaceutical industry with a very high potential. Also, when it comes to the manufacturing of OEM, it has been done also in the pharmaceutical as well.
Do you agree, Ms. Nelly, that Egypt is experiencing a growing demand for advanced medical devices to address the increasing healthcare needs of its growing population?
Let me tell you a very small example. And this is something that I have been seeing on my own scale. Like when we moved to the free zone, that was in the beginning of 2016, we were only 2 factories. For the time being, there are 17 factories.
Interesting.
Yes, and they are still growing. The 17 factories, and more are going on with a very high cycle and a very high rate. This is something that you have to consider. This is only when it comes...
Not all in the medical supplies, in different domains.
No, this is the medical supplies.
Medical supplies only, which is very interesting.
Which is very
high number.
This is a very high number. From 2016 to now, this is a very high number.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, is the medical devices market in Egypt anticipated to experience a compound annual growth rate leading to a big market volume in the coming years?
Yes, as in the coming years, as we said, like the exporting is happening to be 1 billion. It's expected to be like 2 billion within the coming few years. This is like a very good number, and as I told you, it's because mainly of the work labor and all other aspects when it comes to the manufacturing. It's much more cheaper when you compare them to outside. Let me tell you also, when it comes to manufacturing abroad, the process is not becoming easy as before. Like the labor cost abroad, especially in China and India, has been multiplied by 2 and been multiplied by 3. But even if you're multiplying the labor cost here in Egypt by 2 and by 3, it's still
cheaper.
Yes, exactly. It's still cheaper and still like way much more like cheaper than the other stuff from abroad.
Of course.
So this is very tempting for other investors to come and invest.
Is actually Egypt, as we were talking about the vaccines, Egypt now is the first country in the Middle East region to obtain the accreditation for the World Health Organization in the field of vaccines. How has Egypt been qualified to be one of the references that can be relied upon in the global pharmaceutical regulatory work?
Okay, when it comes to the pharma field, with my own knowledge, because you know I'm mainly in the medical.
Yes.
But when it comes to the pharma, I'm not sure if I can mention the name of the.
No, without mentioning name, better.
Yes, a pharmaceutical company that has like launched like 6 months ago with a very good full potential, and there are certain lines coming from Middle East, and France are being fully manufactured in this factory. There's something that you have to consider. This was eye-opening for other investors to open other pharma industries here in Egypt, because as I told you, if you have one success story for one factory, it's very simple to have another replica of these success stories. But also, let me tell you, the pharma is very complicated. When it comes even to the pharma, it's much more harder than the medical. The compounds itself and like the raw materials are not easy to find.
Of course. Before we talk here about the new law, do you believe here that more cooperation between the Egyptian factories and the foreign factories could be witnessed in the coming phase, Ms. Nelly?
It is actually being witnessed, and from my own point of view, this has been happening in the last 3 or 4 years. Mainly with the fluctuation of the foreign currency and all these things, they have found that Egypt is very tempting. But for the coming years, this is going to be replicated. because still, one of the things that we were just discussing in the break, some of the American factories are moving some of these technologies to other countries. Like they're moving like the technologies to China and India. And Middle East is being one of the eye-opened parts for these technology to be moved. It's called the accessories of the medical disposables.
Yes.
We have very high rates when you produce medical disposables. When you compare us to Europe and India and China, still Egypt is much more cheaper. So the technology is being moved to the Middle East, especially in Egypt. And I'm telling you that we are going to be witnessing a lot of medical factories that are going to be opened within like the 5 coming years.
Yeah, it's very promising.
Very, very promising, yes.
Actually, in a landmark move to enhance the healthcare in Egypt, the government has enacted a new law allowing the private investors to manage and to operate the public hospitals for a period of 3 to 15 years. How do you see this law, and how this new law could be beneficial for the health care system in Egypt?
Well, it's actually very beneficial also to the public sector itself, much more to the industry, because when you have, one of the things that we have been seeing, and actually it was a big problem, like if you are not having enough supplies in the country, the patients are affected. Like this is the first row, which is the patient. But when you depend on a local manufacturer here in Egypt, depending 100% on the local manufacturer, it will help you get out from the issue of the supplies are not here anymore.
Due to many problems.
Due to many problems,
foreign currency, shipment, many
exactly.
obstacles.
And as you know, also we're having problems with the shipments and the pricing and all these things, but mainly depending on a local manufacturing. With the public sector, I see that this is something which is very beneficial for both parties.
Of course.
Like for the public sector hospital, I am guaranteeing that all my medical supplies are here.
Yes.
I'm not going to take too much time in order to order my bulk orders or whatever order I need to put in my storage, because this is a medical factory that's existing here in the country.
Indeed.
And by the way, it is not here in Egypt, that this is something that we have been seeing all over the world, especially when Corona hit. Because one of the things that have been seeing, like all the countries said, my people are the ones who are supposed to be using my own supplies.
Our people are the priority.
Yes, our people are the priority. It was like an alarming bell here in Egypt.
Of course.
For us, it was a huge alarming bell. And since then, we have been seeing like a tremendous and a huge curve when it comes to the pushing of the medical industry and localizing of the medical industry here in Egypt.
So it's one of the few positives of the COVID.
Yes. I see it was one of the very good things that happened for the
Do you think that the private sector involvement will actually enhance the quality of the healthcare services as well?
Indeed, yes, because you know when it comes to the private sector, hospitals and the private, I mean the private sector itself, the private sector invests a lot also on the R&D. We as private sector, we want to compete with international markets. So you are definitely producing quality products. So the quality products you're having abroad are definitely going to be sold here in Egypt as well. So you're definitely seeing quality products in a public sector hospital and a private sector hospital. But this time, it's being manufactured here in Egypt. It's like setting up a high benchmark for yourself. Like when you compete with abroad and you're trying to have your product as standardized as the European or the American product, you're helping yourself, and by turn you're helping like the public and the private sector.
To what extent, by your experience here, Engineer Nelly, our medical products are actually competitive abroad as well? And what are mainly the markets that we are working with or we are targeting?
Let me tell you something. When it comes to the medical field products here in Egypt, you can't compete simply abroad because like you have very, very strict measures. One of the measures is you have CE certified. You have to be, your product has to be CE certified.
Of course.
And it follows certain criteria. So I can tell you we are competing fiercely outside, and our products are being like well known in
abroad.
Actually, we are competing with the Chinese and the Indian as well, because you are producing the same quality, and at the same time,
maybe
it's way
cheaper.
less. It's way less cheaper. Yes, this is one thing. I see that we are going to be excelling in the few years, and maybe we're actually also selling in the Indian market as well. Like some of our medical industry here in Egypt are selling as bulk and OEMs. Let me tell you something also about the European market. They started to prefer the Egyptian products rather than the Chinese, which is something which is very, it's an alarming to us.
Very
alarming, and something very tempting for us.
Do you believe that we should start actually to increase our medical supplies, manufacturing sectors, as you have kindly mentioned, that we did increase our factories from just 2 by the year 2016 to 17.
This was only in one area.
Yes,
yes. Like we didn't speak about the other areas, but definitely when you make like your own statistics, you will find it's a very high scale of increasing. What we're trying for the time being, like me, myself, and the other medical investors, we're trying to bring investors from the Gulf area. Because they like to browse the medical fields, but they're a bit like
skeptical.
They're a bit skeptical about. Yes, they're a bit reluctant. They're a bit skeptical about the whole process because it is a bit specified.
Indeed.
It's not an FB or a textile manufacturing.
Very sensitive area.
Yes, but as I told you, we're pointing out some good successful.
Yes,
stories.
Indeed, it's very cheerful and very positive point that we did reach till now, and we wish you all the success, Engineer Nelly, Hammad, Abdul Rahman, our board member of Medical Disposable Factories. Thank you so much for being our guest for today, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you very much.
Nelly. And our dear viewers, with that we come to the end of this edition of the Daily Debate. Till tomorrow with another crew, it's goodbye. Many thanks for watching.